If I asked you what your profit was in your clothing line last month, not revenue, but profit, could you answer that correctly? If not, or if you're unsure, this video is for you. I'm going to show you the simplest way to track profit and the super simple P&L template I've been using for over 10 years in my business. What I love about this template is it puts everything right there in front of you. It doesn't lie, it's super simple to use, and it's customized for apparel and product brands. Even if you're a really small brand and or doing it part-time, you still have to be profitable to stay in business. Revenue tells you if people like your product, and margin tells you if your business actually works. Apparel is capital intensive. There are sampling costs, production costs, shipping, duties, upfront payments, and long lead times. In your apparel brand, you can have very strong sales but still be losing money. Margin matters more than revenue in this business, and that's why so many brands are going out of business lately. Being aware of the numbers and what they mean will help you so much in your business. It helps you make better decisions and more intentional choices with your brand. And also, clothing lines are very creative, and we want to give ourselves the space and the freedom to experiment and create and make mistakes while we're still being aware of expenses and money and finances. In fashion, each month and each season is different. There are some months and seasons that you have really high cash flow, and then some months that usually you have lower cash flow. You need to know ahead of time which months are going to be slow, which are going to be busy, and this is a good way to plan for cash flow. Sometimes growing can actually reduce your margins, and the reason for this is that you're probably doing more wholesale or B2B, and that has a lower margin. Your overhead costs are growing, and you might be adding contractors or employees. Let's move on to the template and walk through each section briefly. The first section is the net sales revenue. And a net sales revenue is just your total sales less returns and taxes paid. What we do on this template that is super helpful is we separate revenue by sales channel. It makes it so much easier to look at each sales channel and which one is bringing in the most revenue, the least revenue. We called our total net sales revenue J. Next, we look at our cost of goods sold, or COGS. We also have our COGS listed out for each sales channel, and our total COGS is called K. It's a great way to see your wholesale separated from your direct-to-consumer. Once we list all of our net sales revenue and our COGS, we can get our gross profit, and that's what we call L. So our gross profit, L, equals the total net sales revenue, J, minus the total COGS, K. So this is the first part of the template. Next, we move into our operating expenses, and I break these down into 3 categories. Any more than that, I feel can be overwhelming, but you can add more if that's what you choose. My 3 categories that I suggest are sales and marketing, travel and R&D, and general and admin. So for sales and marketing, I list here any ads I run for my business on social media, etc. Any kind of event booth fees and event parking for markets, events that I have for my business, like pop-up markets, seasonal events, any of that. I also list here business cards, banners, booth signage, all the marketing collateral that I use and purchase for my business. Another thing I list here is design software like Canva, and this is something I use 100% for business marketing. So when you have all of your sales and marketing expenses listed here, that equals M. And you can add rows here to suit your business needs and remove rows if you don't have as many expenses. Next, we have travel R&D, and R&D just means research and design. First, if you take any business trips, visit manufacturers, trade shows, etc., you can list the flight, the hotel or lodging, the car rental, the gas parking. If you have any kind of sampling for new development, which is like sampling that you pay your manufacturers to make, and also purchasing concept or development samples for fabric reference, trims, etc. Again, you can add and change rows here as it suits your own business. And for example, if you hire a freelance consultant for R&D, you can add their 1099 payments to a row here if you want. So total travel R&D is N. Next, we move on to general and administrative expenses. And this is where I put most of my expenses. And some of these you could probably categorize in other sections, but I just tend to use this as my main section. So total general and administrative expenses, I'm calling O. For example, some of these expenses are product shipping costs. Like I offer free shipping to my customers. So I put down what I pay for shipping for the year in this section. Also put sales channel transaction fees. Basically for any sales channel you use, like Shopify or Square, you're going to have transaction fees that you pay for each transaction. I list those here. Any kind of software subscription fees, like if you use Zoom, if you use Soft Office, Photoshop, Adobe, Illustrator, all of those can be listed here. They have to be used, obviously, for your business. Any kind of shipping carrier fees or brokerage fees, not including duty, can be listed here. Hardware as well, if you buy a computer or a phone or any kind of hardware for your business. And as you can see, the list goes on. You know, if you have a storage space rent where you're storing inventory, if you have a studio, if you have a store, a retail store, you list your rent here, your utilities, your office admin supplies, any kind of interest or fees that you pay on business accounts, tax prep fees. And if you have a home office, if you work out of your home office, you can do sometimes do a square footage deduction. If you're using part of your home office for your work, you can figure out how to do that. So we add up all the general and administrative expenses, and that is O. So once we have all of our expenses listed, we can get our total operating expenses, which we're calling P. So those are the totals from the above three sections. So P equals M plus N plus O. And these are formulas in here, as I've noted. So, don't change it unless you want to change the formula. So next we get our income from operations. So that's Q, is what we're calling Q, and that equals our gross profit, or L, minus all operating expenses. Lastly, I add any interest income I receive from banks and deduct any taxes, like let's say I use my vehicle for work, so an excise or a luxury tax. And you can add rows depending on your personal situation or your business situation. So now we can get our total net profit, which is the number we're really looking for. And this is what I call T. And this just equals our income from operations, which is Q, plus any interest income, R, minus our taxes, S. So there you have it. This is a way to really see your revenues, your cost of goods, your expenses, and your net profit all in one place. So a couple of additional notes and tips to keep in mind. If you have freelancers, contractors, employees, you can add an additional section of operating expenses. That's payroll, employees. For sake of keeping it simple, I didn't add that here, but you can absolutely add that. And as I said before, I think it's really important to separate your wholesale revenue from your direct-to-consumer revenue, and do that with your COGS as well. So you can see the difference in your margin from wholesale versus direct-to-consumer margin. So just to recap, this P&L is not about accounting or taxes. It's really about visibility to the health of your business. It puts your entire business in one place in a simple way so you can see what is happening. It's not about being good at finance. It's about being able to see your business on paper, and the numbers don't lie. What a P&L makes obvious is if your pricing actually works, if your retail pricing, your wholesale pricing, and your costs. So basically, if your margins are healthy or if they're not healthy, it helps you see if growth is helping you or hurting you, and you can look further into why. For example, when you first start growing, your margin might go down slightly because your expenses are all of a sudden going up. That is probably going to even off if your business is healthy. So just keeping an eye on that and knowing that if your margins are decreasing, but your volume is increasing, then you might be growing and you're in the initial stages of growth. It also lets you see where you might be spending too much money, where your expenses are too high, where you can cut back to save money. It's a great way to look at that objectively. And looking at your revenue and your COGS, it really helps you to see if your pricing, like I said, your retail pricing might be too low, your wholesale pricing might not work, and your cost of goods might be too high. And this is where maybe you go in, you might try and negotiate better pricing with your manufacturer, or you might decide you have to raise your retail prices next year because the margins just aren't working. By using this P&L, your decision making should become a lot easier. It's not going to be perfect, but it's definitely going to be easier. It's going to be easier to reorder or pause production on certain styles if you need to. If you're looking at it and you see the numbers are off. It's going to be easier to say no to lower margin styles and say yes to margin builders or higher margin styles. It's going to make it a lot easier for you to decide where to focus your time and money. Spend less money on X and invest more in Y. This template is really helpful for you to kind of stop reacting and start deciding. So it's better to start using a P&L sooner rather than later. And this template you can start using right away, even if you're brand new in business. You can even break it down and use it monthly instead of on a yearly basis. You can customize it as your business grows and evolves and if your situation changes. If you want to start seeing your business this way too and use this tool, I'm giving away a free template, a free download in Google Sheets, and all you have to do is click the link in the description. Again, this template is designed specifically for small batch apparel brands and small businesses / solopreneurs. You can download it right away, make a copy, plug in your numbers, and start getting clarity immediately. The link is in the description, and I'd love for you to download it and start using it. This is one of those tools that's so easy, and it can quietly make everything else a little bit easier. If you want more realistic conversations about building a clothing brand, small batch apparel, and the fashion industry in general, feel free to put it in the comments what you want to see next and check out one of my other videos. I'll see you in the next video.